Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we are going to be talking about signs in the heavens because this just blew me away when I saw this. Okay, the Jerusalem Post, Judgment Day. 3 asteroids fly past Earth on Yom Kippur, NASA. And, some of you have been watching my channel since last year or longer. I started in August 2021. And last year, on Christmas, which last year, Christmas also happened to be the same day as the last day of Hanukkah, which it isn't always like that because the Hebrew calendar is a lunar calendar. So it just so happened that last year, 2022, the last day of Hanukkah, the last day that they lit the 8 candles, coincided with Christmas. And on that day, there were 3 asteroids that flew by Earth. And there's actually some similarities to look at here beyond just that. And there's another set of 3 that I didn't even know about that happened last year. Why do we keep having sets of 3 asteroids flying by Earth on very significant days? I think that these are signs of the times. These are signs in the heavens. And I don't know. All I can say is that it's highly unlikely that this would have happened. I'm going to go over all of it. I'm going to show you all of it. All the different signs of the heavens last year and this year. Now that we have this that just happened yesterday on Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Hebrew calendar and in Judaism. And it also happened to be the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, which was one of 3 wars that Israel has fought where their existence was at stake. And based on what I've studied for this video, it was actually the closest that the Arabs came to destroying Israel. So for this to happen on the 50th anniversary of that war, and as we're thinking of the second coming being so close, at least many of us, it's just, man, I just feel like the Lord is really showing us the signs of the times and that he's on the way. So before we get into that, let's start off by looking at the Flood the Earth challenge. We've gone way up as far as the number of copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. There was one person that had sent me an email, and he updated me since I think he said December when the challenge started, and he's actually a ward missionary leader. Let me pull up the email. So he did this activity, and I can't pull up the images for some reason. Usually I can, but for some reason it's not pulling up. But you can basically see here, he did this thing in his ward where, they wrapped up all these Book of Mormons in wrapping paper because this was around Christmas time, and they gave out these copies of the Book of Mormon. And there have been other people that have reported to me or sent me emails where they've done different activities and stuff in their ward, whether it was like for youth groups or whatever. So if you're a leader in your ward, you might consider doing something like this, especially this upcoming holiday season. Maybe especially for Christmas, just because, it makes it that much easier. Like he pointed out, if you can do something like this, like you wrap it up in nice, wrapping paper, and then hand them out to neighbors, friends, whatever. So really neat idea. It looks like with this, not only was there a Book of Mormon, but also like a little piece of paper attached to it. Like I said, I can't open these up, so I don't know exactly what it said, but probably some kind of just like, holiday greetings and maybe like a scripture or something like that. But thank you for letting me know about this. Hopefully it gives some of you some ideas. So we have shot up to 6,823 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. So we are now less than 200 away from getting to 7,000. And that's the next milestone. So hopefully we can do that. And then additionally, we have 2 new reports of baptisms. One of them is from a while ago, and I only got updated now. So along with those baptisms, they reported missionaries at the same time. So we have 2 new missionary contacts, and then along with those 2 new baptisms, which brings us to a total of 28. And so for the month of September, again, these aren't necessarily, it's not necessarily the month that these things occurred. It's just when they're reported. That's how this table goes. But so far there's been 2 reports of baptisms this month and 5 people meeting with the missionaries, 2 of which got baptized. So everybody keep it up. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, but still, try and do it as soon as possible. We don't know how much time we have left. And the sooner that someone can learn about the gospel, the better. The channel goal is to share at least 10 each. And then we're trying to at least get to 1,000 people that have joined this challenge. Right now we're at 718. All right. So next, before we get into the signs in the heavens and the 3 asteroids, I have a disaster update. We're looking at Cape Town, South Africa. Now, you might recall a while ago, we had already been down here. You see these other 4 place markers because on the 16th of September, along the southern coast of South Africa, there were these storm surges that were taking place, like really massive storm surges, almost tsunami-like, where the sea was going well beyond its bounds. And cars were being swept away and just all the typical things. Well, now, separately from that, now there's flooding in Cape Town. And Cape Town is one of the capital cities of South Africa. I think there's maybe 2 others. I don't know, but basically this is the city where they have their legislature. Okay, so this is like one of the capital cities, Cape Town. I only mention that because if you're new, I have been keeping this spreadsheet. It started out as just tracking capital cities, but I decided to go beyond that. But in column D, I'll put if it was a capital city, and Cape Town is a capital city. Just 2 days before that, the capital of Ghana was hit by flash flooding. And then 2 days before that, London, the capital of the UK, was hit by flash flooding. And we had Madrid and just all these capital cities. And then on top of that, other cities. Just this month. This has been the month of flooding. It's just been crazy flooding all around the world. So let's go ahead and let's look at some of these videos. Looks like that guy's about to be stranded and probably going to end up on top of his car. He's in the early phases of being stranded on top of his car. We've seen that a lot with the flash flooding, unless he gets out of there. People on rafts going around, looking for, I suppose, looking for people that need saving. Okay, here's some more devastation, roads being turned into rivers. And in this case, it seems like there's a lot of like debris from like branches and rocks and mud and stuff like that. And I didn't bother to look up all the other surrounding areas. This one says Mafuleni Township, 32 kilometers from Cape Town, South Africa. I really wish, it's getting actually a little overwhelming trying to keep this spreadsheet. So I might have to narrow it down just to like the main city that gets affected rather than try and track down the different cities. But so here's this one, 32 kilometers from Cape Town. This one's from user Ni Cassava Joe. Chapman's Peak officially becomes Cape Town's newest river. I don't know where these guys are going, but they're going somewhere fast. I don't know if they're just going on a jog or they're doing something else. Looks like they have a dog with them. This is from Anchor Manish Kumar. Cape Town weather update. Heavy rainfall has led to flooding in Vielisdorp. And there goes that, whatever that is, vintage steam engine locomotive. I'm not sure what that is, but there it goes. Getting swept away by the current. Sir Lowry's Pass Village. I think there was one person that said in the comments one time that they're from South Africa. If you're from South Africa, let me know. I hope that you're safe, but put it in the comments below. If you've visited South Africa, put it in the comments below. Here's some pictures, vehicles submerged. These guys with a raft. Looks like they're looking to go help some people. More roads turned into rivers. And so there's that. And then I went, even despite all those videos and those videos coming from a lot of different sources, it's like the more sources, the more sure you can be that it's that these videos are correct. But I still verified it, and sure enough, Business Day, Smile 90.4, and Barron's all confirmed it, along with other articles. This article says that large parts of the Western Cape suffered severe damage over the long weekend as widespread flooding, landslides, and rockfalls forced the closure of all major roads leading into Cape Town. So that's a little bit dramatic. Cape Town is kind of a major city. Look at this. Look how big it is. It's populated. There's a lot of people that live there. So all major roads closed. Well, I suppose this is Cape Town right here. I don't know if it's just talking about like Cape Town proper or the metro area, but either way, that's pretty dramatic. All right, so that's it for that. Want to give credit to Greg Brown and Jim Van Sickle, because they're the ones that reminded me about this story. I saw the notification on my phone, and I told myself I was going to remember, but who knows if I would, if it wasn't for these two. So thank you guys. Here's the story. Judgment Day, because Yom Kippur. It's the Day of Atonement. 3 asteroids to fly past Earth on Yom Kippur. NASA. Very odd. Of course, 3 would have special meaning to us as Christians, and maybe even more so us as Latter-day Saints, since we view the Godhead as 3 separate individuals, personages, entities, whatever. Yom Kippur, the Jewish Judgment Day, is almost here. That's because this was written on the 24th, so the day before Yom Kippur. And 3 asteroids are said to come with it, according to NASA's asteroid tracker. The 3 asteroids will pass by the Earth on Monday, September 25th, the day of Yom Kippur. Now pay attention to this. And one of them will be flying unusually close to the planet's surface. So, just for kicks and giggles, let's say that this is some kind of representation of the Godhead. Let's just say, just for argument's sake, let's say that it is. So if there was one of those 3 that were going to be unusually close to Earth, Which one would it be? I would say Christ, because he came here during his mortal ministry, and he's going to come here for the second coming. And God the Father, even though he has been here, he's going to remain where he's at. And the Holy Ghost, we can only assume maybe he's where God the Father is. He's not going to physically, well, his actual spirit body is not going to come here. So you might say that the one that would be unusually close might represent Christ. Just keep that in mind, okay? There's a reason why I highlighted this. Okay, these asteroids have been designated 2023 SP3, 2023 ST2, and 2023 SZ, according to the Center for Near-Earth Object Studies, or CNEOS, or CNEOS, at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. Okay, all right, that's odd. We're going to go ahead and look at Christmas, like I said, because this same thing happened on Christmas Day, which was also the last day of Hanukkah last year. But let's finish off with this article first. The three asteroids are all relatively close in size based on NASA's estimations. The first asteroid, 2020 SP3, has a size range from as little as 14 meters in diameter to as much as 32 meters. Why do they have a picture of a goat on here? It's because that's what they do on Yom Kippur in Judaism. Well, at least during the time of the temple, because I think the temple's required to do this. This is the scapegoat, right? And they talk about it in this article because it's the Jerusalem Post. So, okay, to put that in perspective, consider the goat, an animal ritualistically sacrificed on Yom Kippur by tossing one, known as the scapegoat, off a cliff, and the other being brought to the temple. According to the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, goat sizes range heavily, but the largest ones are around 106.7 centimeters in height. In other words, asteroid 2023 SP3 is around the size of almost 30 goats. Okay, so just a little thing so you can visualize it. Later on in the article, there's this kind of interesting story too. However, parts of an asteroid are actually guaranteed to arrive on Earth on Yom Kippur, but under very different circumstances. NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission is now bringing back its first ever preserved asteroid sample from the 500-meter asteroid Bennu. These samples have massive potential for future scientific research, and rather than being a harbinger of our doom, Bennu is believed to be one of the most likely candidates of asteroids that could actually pose danger to Earth in the far future. It will instead be a path toward better understanding of the universe around us. I probably should have pulled this up, but let's just go to this link. There's actually no, okay. Let me just do a quick search. Sorry, I wasn't thinking about really talking about this too much, but I saw some pictures earlier today that give you an idea of what that's talking about. Let's see. Asteroid sample. Right here. Well, let's do this one by CNN. A long-awaited asteroid sample has landed in the U.S. So, yeah, so they got a sample of an asteroid, and I guess it came back in this capsule right here. And so they're going to, analyze it and study it. Interesting thing to happen on Yom Kippur. Not saying that it's a sign, but it could be. It's kind of weird that we have 3 asteroids passing by Earth on Yom Kippur, and then we're actually getting a piece of an asteroid, a different asteroid, on that same day. That's kind of weird, don't you think? So anyway, that happened. Okay, that's bizarre. Let's move on. I think that might be it. Okay, so that happened today. Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Hebrew calendar. Now, let's go back to Christmas of 2022. And just so you can see it on the calendar, all right, here we are, December 2022. Here's the 25th of December. And I'm sorry, I can't zoom in when it comes to this calendar. So in the bottom left, you see it's Christmas. And then you see that it's Hanukkah 8, or Hanukkah 8 candles. So in other words, this is the last day of lighting candles. That's when you reach 8 candles. Okay? So at a time when Christians were celebrating Christ's birth, Jews were lighting the final candle of the menorah to commemorate the miracle during the war with the Greeks, in really a civil war. Okay, where essentially the oil used to light the menorah in the temple, it was desecrated, defiled. If I remember right, they found one vessel that had not been desecrated, where the oil was still ritually pure. But it was only enough to last for, I think, like a day or something, but it lasted for 8 days. And so it was a miracle. And that was the time that they needed in order to produce more ritualistically pure olive oil. So it's like God had a miracle happen so that they could continue the temple service until they could make more oil. Okay, so on Christmas, on that day, there were 3 asteroids. 3 giant asteroids will have close encounter with Earth on Christmas Day. All right, so what's this all about? Not 1, not 2, but 3 huge asteroids are paying us a holiday visit and are due to speed relatively near the Earth on Christmas Day. Relative to distances in the universe, that is, so there's no reason to panic. The 3 asteroids are named 2022 YL1, 2013 YA14, and 2022 TE14. So the reason why I have this highlighted is because I wanted to compare to these other 2 articles. Are these like the same asteroids? Like, I have no idea. No, they're not. They're different asteroids. Okay, and are estimated to measure between 124 and 278 feet, between 167 and 360 feet, and between 312 and 689 feet in diameter, respectively. So I looked that up right here. So, for example, 360 feet would be 109 meters. So these are significantly bigger than these ones on Yom Kippur, because these ones were, for example, 14 to 32. So a lot bigger. The ones on Christmas were a lot bigger. Therefore, 2022 YL1 is around the same size as the wingspan of a Boeing 777. 2013 YA14 is smaller in scale, similar in scale to an American football field, while 2022 TE14 will be around the same size as a 50-story building. We'll call them asteroids A, B, and C, respectively. All right, I think that's all I had in this article. So Yom Kippur, Christmas, which that year was also the last day of Hanukkah as well. And then the one that I didn't know about until today was this. Apparently this happened a 3rd time. 3 asteroids to pass Earth, 1 to fly closer to planet than normal. Okay, that is weird. So when did this happen? 3 asteroids are set to pass by the Earth on Tuesday, September 20th. One of which is the size of a bridge, and the other 2 being twice the length of a London bus, according to NASA's asteroid tracker. Though they likely won't impact the planet, one of these asteroids is still coming noticeably closer than average. It's almost like some kind of like parallel event to the one that just happened yesterday on Yom Kippur. And in the middle of those two, so you have this one in September, you have the one in December, and now we have this one, September 2023. So if you put those together, you have like these three events. The one in the middle is the one that has the big asteroids. And then the ones on either side of Christmas, they both have this feature where one of the asteroids is noticeably closer, quote unquote, than the other two. That's just weird. That's weird. Here's the names. 2022 SC1, 2022 SW1, and 2022 SH. Okay, so all 9 asteroids are different from each other. It's not like it's a repeat or anything like that. Not that that's necessarily significant. Maybe it would be more significant if like you had an asteroid coming back around, but maybe not. Well, probably not, because you'd be like, oh, well, that's just part of their orbit, so that's expected. So no, I guess it is important that they're all different. But anyway, you have this weird thing where they're coming in sets of 3. And September 20th of last year, let's go to that. September 20th was 1 week before Rosh Hashanah. Now, there was something very interesting that was going on during Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so first you have the 3 asteroids, and then after that, on Rosh Hashanah, you have this event that's taking place. Jupiter is coming its closest to Earth in decades. The gas giant Jupiter is coming the closest it has come to Earth in 59 years this Monday, and will be particularly visible because it coincides with another event called opposition. In case you don't know what opposition is, it's basically just, whenever we have a full moon where like we see the whole moon because where it is in relation to the sun and us. So it's like we get a full moon effect because you get the full visibility. That's what opposition is for other planets. So basically it was like saying a full Jupiter. Okay. So we had a full Jupiter as it was the closest to Earth in 59 years. And it happened on Monday, which was Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah last year. And we talked about this. We've talked about, I think a lot of Christianity, when they get kind of into these kind of speculative or esoteric type conversations, they view Jupiter as like the king planet, right? Because it has stripes. So with my stripes, you are healed. And then it has the big red spot, which is like being pierced in the side. I don't know, how much validity there is to that, if that's what the Lord, intended. We know in Hebrew, they call Jupiter Zedek, which means righteousness. So it's a significant planet. It's the largest planet in our solar system. And I don't know, it showed up, the closest to Earth on Rosh Hashanah. And 1 week after we had this visit by these 3 asteroids. It's very weird. It's very, very weird. And then, so 3 asteroids on the 20th. And then on the 26th, 1 week later, Jupiter comes for Rosh Hashanah, the closest in 59 years. And then, skipping forward a couple months to December, on Christmas Day, there's 3 large asteroids that pass by the Earth. And in that particular year, it was also the last day of Hanukkah, or at least the last day of lighting the candles, like getting to 8 candles. And on that day, not only was there the 3 asteroids, but there was what's called a planetary parade, or a planetary alignment. Okay, this is from Forbes. Christmas Day we'll see the second, final, and best planetary parade of 2022. All right. And we've talked about this already. If we go to Sky and Telescope, it says all 8 planets line up again. And those planets, in case you're wondering, is Venus, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, Uranus, and Mars, in that order. And then it continues, as before, feel free to add the planet you're standing on to complete the octet, if you'd rather have the moon substitute for Earth. And I would rather. So if you're looking up in the sky, you would basically see 8 planets all at the same time. With a couple of them, I think you need a telescope like Neptune, for example, Saturn. But the fact remains that at that time, on Christmas Day, you'd be able to see 8 lights in the sky. They were calling it an octet. Okay, 8 planets, which would include the moon. 8 planets, 8 lights in the sky. And we were just talking about Hanukkah and how they light 8 candles for Hanukkah. So there was essentially a heavenly menorah on Christmas Day at the same time that 3 asteroids pass by the Earth. It's mighty strange, if you ask me. It's kind of strange by itself, but then when you add in these other 2 sets of 3 asteroids, it gets even stranger still. And then that's not even all of it. There's more. So let's get into that. Before I forget this, I just want to read a little bit of this from Israel 365. It's talking about the Yom Kippur War. So the Yom Kippur War, when the nation of Israel was judged and nearly failed. Okay. On Yom Kippur, October 6th, 1973, while Jews around the world were praying for God to redeem their souls, the still young state of Israel went through a trial of fire, which it came very close to losing. For the first 3 days of the Yom Kippur War, Israel's fate hung in the balance while overwhelming Arab forces advanced almost unopposed into the heart of the tiny country. Only the heroic acts of a few individuals saved the tiny state of Israel from total annihilation. Now, this is a typo, okay, because it was exactly 50 years ago. Okay, look at this, 1973. That was 50 years ago. So this is a typo. So I'm gonna correct it. He put 44, but he meant 50. Exactly 50 years ago, a coalition led by Syria and Egypt and supported by the former Soviet Union launched a surprise attack on Israel. The enemy attack focused on the Golan Heights and the Sinai, territories gained in the 1967 Six-Day War that gave Israel a strategic buffer zone necessary for its survival. Later in the article, it says, and I guess I didn't really know this. I would have assumed that the War of Independence would have been the closest that it came to defeat. But according to this article, and I trust it, it says, this was the closest Israel had come to defeat at the hands of the Arabs. After the sustained euphoria that still remained after the victory of the Six-Day War, which, remember, that's the war where Israel captured Jerusalem. And I think universally it is viewed as the time of the Gentiles ending when it comes to Jerusalem literally being trodden under the foot of the Gentiles. Right? So there's 2 parts to the times of the Gentiles. One is the time that they are in control of Jerusalem, the city. And then the other one is them getting first, what's it called? Basically getting the gospel first once it was restored, going to the Gentiles first and then later to the Jews. So, but as far as the city went, that's essentially when that part of the prophecy was fulfilled, was the Six-Day War. in 1967. So after the sustained euphoria that still remained after the victory of the Six-Day War, the painful victory of the Yom Kippur War just 6 years later made it clear that there was no guarantee that Israel would always dominate the Arab states militarily. The dismay and disappointment in the government after the war led to the dissolution of Golda Meir's government. All right, so again, I don't know, a war where they came the closest they had ever been to being destroyed. And this year, it's the 50-year anniversary. And on that day, this year, 3 asteroids passed by the Earth that seem to be part of this ongoing event where we have 3 asteroids that keep coming past the Earth on significant days. I don't know. Signs in the heavens, in my mind. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's kind of go through the timeline. We did this, I don't know, a while ago, like maybe a few months ago, where we kind of did a review of the signs in the heavens, but we're going to do it again because I think that you have to put it all together to kind of like see the big picture. So we're starting just last year, June 29th. It was the shortest rotation of the Earth on record, 1.59 milliseconds, under 24 hours. Now, if you ever come to my spreadsheet, first, the tab that we're on is called Timeline Second Coming. Okay. And if you ever come to this particular spreadsheet, my references are over here to the right in column R. So it'll give you the name of the article that I used to verify that. And when I very first started this spreadsheet, I was trying to like have everything in Chicago Manual of Style format for the references. And it said that it's okay to shorten the URL to just, in this case, for example, space.com. But then I decided I wanted to leave the full link. And so that's like a newer development. So you'll have to forgive that. But it does have the name of the article for some of these earlier entries. Okay, so shortest rotation of the Earth on record, June 29th, 2022. This comes at a time when both Mars and Earth are rotating faster. If you look at these columns K and L, and you follow them all the way down, on November 26th, that's when the Mars InSight rover began its mission and sent back that reading or that data. And they realized that Mars was rotating faster. And the Earth, let me find it. Sometime, I don't have an exact date, but sometime in 2016, they observed the Earth beginning to spin faster. So that's already kind of weird. But then in 2022, we have the shortest day on record in the context of an Earth that's already spinning faster. Okay, so you had that. And then you had this meteor that caused a large boom over Salt Lake City, to include all the way down to Provo and all the way north to southern Idaho. It was a very large area. We've noted before that the date is kind of like a mirror date to when Angel Moroni dropped his trumpet. Angel Moroni dropped his trumpet on 3/18, meaning March 18th. And that was an event where the missionaries, it corresponds with the time that the missionaries were called home. Temples were closed down, right? But then in this particular year, and after a general conference in April, where there was a big call out for missionaries, you have this very loud event that takes place on the mirror date on 8/13. So that happened. I had lived in Salt Lake until I can't remember. I think I was probably 20, well, either 27 or 28. And I never heard a large boom from a meteor that exploded over Salt Lake City. So it's a rare thing to happen for any given location on Earth, but it happened in that year and after that particular conference. Let's see. All right, and then September 20th, the 3 asteroids that passed by Earth 1 week before Rosh Hashanah, which is the Feast of Trumpets. And then on Rosh Hashanah, a week later, Jupiter was the closest to Earth it had ever been in 59 years. And I want to delete this part because that just has to do with Eastern time. That's not really significant. Okay. And then in October, okay, now get this. In October, on the eve of the Feast of Tabernacles, okay, on the eve of the Feast of Tabernacles, humanity sees the most powerful explosion it had ever recorded. It was a gamma ray burst called GRB 221009A, and this was exactly 1 week after the Sunday sessions of General Conference. And in that conference, President Nelson said, and I might as well pull it up. Okay, sorry. I'm probably going to pull up some other things as well. Oh, and while I'm here, by the way, I meant to mention this earlier. I got an email from Joe Broderick, and he says, Jared, the magazine cover changed for October, meaning for the Liahona. We had already noted, because of somebody else's email, that for this year, all the Liahona cover art has featured Christ. Right? From January all the way until September. But then, here, I'll zoom in. But then in October, that ends. And now it's that picture of, I think this picture is from like 2020, maybe 2018. I'm not sure. Around that time, 2018 to 2020, I think. President Nelson, President Oaks, and President Eyring. So they ended that pattern. Don't know that it means anything, but you would think that they would just, I would think that they would just be like, okay, this year we're going to do all the covers. It's all going to be Christ because we're doing the, come follow me, New Testament. So I don't know. But that's just something interesting to note. All right, so let's go to Gospel Library. Let's go to General Conference, October 2022, Overcome the World and Find Rest. Sorry, I gotta find it. Control F, power. Okay. This is what he says. This is exactly 1 week before we see the most powerful explosion ever recorded in humanity, in the history of humanity. But my dear brothers and sisters, so many wonderful things are ahead. In coming days, we will see the greatest manifestations of the Savior's power that the world has ever seen. Between now and the time he returns with power and great glory, he will bestow countless privileges, blessings, and miracles upon the faithful. And the footnote for with power and great glory takes you to Joseph Smith Matthew 136. That talks about the appearance of the sign of the Son of Man. Now, when he says that the world is going to see the greatest manifestations of the Savior's power the world has ever seen, I don't think that it's limited to just that gamma ray burst, but it's interesting that happened. So in a literal sense, we really actually did see the greatest power that we've ever seen. Let me go back here. Okay, let's do, I'm going to just pull up an article really quick so you can get a visual of what this looks like. Okay, let's go to the Wikipedia article, and here you go. This is it. It may not look too impressive because this is obviously from a telescope, but I assure you that if you were closer to it, it would have been grand. It would have been grand. But this was the largest, this is the most powerful, and also the brightest event that humanity has ever recorded and witnessed. Okay. GRB 221009A. Okay, so kind of weird. And then 3 days after that, this story comes out. Let me just pull this up. Images. This isn't something that like appeared on that day, but because of the Webb telescope, what isn't it called, the James Webb? Yeah, the James Webb Space Telescope, which can take better pictures. They were able to take a better picture of this particular star, and they were able to count 17 rings because of this new telescope. I can't remember what it was before, but now we have higher definition images. These are dust rings caused by, I guess, gravity of the star, I suppose. But it's just interesting with all the talk that we have about 17. That it just so happens at this time that we're able to take a picture of this star and count 17 rings. So that's kind of weird. Okay, so that happened. You had this weird partial eclipse over Russia. Let's pull that up. Russia 2022 eclipse. And I checked, and it's not very often that Russia has this type of eclipse. Let me see. It's a partial lunar eclipse. Let's go here. Let's look at the map. Zoom out. No, that's this year. What the heck am I doing? I said 2022 Russia partial eclipse. Yeah, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. So I find this significant because it happened during the year that the Ukraine war began. Let's see, Ukraine war beginning. I think it was like, wasn't it February of last year? When did the Ukraine war start? Yeah, the 24th of February, 2022. So that happens, and then later in the year, Russia has this eclipse that goes over the it's a partial eclipse, but it goes over the heartland, you could say, of Russia, right here. So I found that kind of odd. I wish I remember exactly what it was I searched whenever I did a video about this, but I want to say that, of course, you have different things take place, but to have have an eclipse that is basically centered on Russia, when I researched it, it doesn't happen very often at all. So this was kind of a more rare thing to happen. And it was in the year that Russia started its war with Ukraine. So that's odd. Okay. November 8th of last year. It was election day in the United States, and it was the first ever election day blood moon. Okay. So a lot of really weird things happening in the heavens in this particular year in 2022. And having a blood moon on election day, especially given what the country's been like for the last few years, probably ever since Obama or Trump, it's probably not a good sign. It's probably not a good sign for the government. We know that when Christ comes, he's going to assume the reins of all government for the entire world. So maybe it just kind of alludes to that future and possibly very close event. Okay. Now, December 21st, interesting because that's that's solstice time. That same rover on Mars, InSight rover, had its last observation of Mars rotating faster. So I can't remember the story. It was a while ago. It's probably still rotating faster, but we can't confirm that. Okay, now we're on Christmas Day / 8th day of Hanukkah. 3 giant asteroids pass Earth, and then we have the octet planetary alignment, or you could also call it a planetary parade. A menorah in the sky. 8 lights in the sky as Jews all around the world are lighting their 8th candle that night. Don't know what it means, but it was an interesting 4 things to take place on the same day. 1, Christmas. 2, the 8th day of lighting candles during Hanukkah. 3, the planetary octet. 4, 3 giant asteroids pass Earth. That's those 4 things to happen all at the same time. I think that's probably pretty rare. Pretty rare. Okay, now we're in 2023. I'm going to skip a couple of these. I'm just going to pick on the ones that seem a little bit more significant. You had this, an unprecedented vortex on the sun's north pole. Let me see if I can just pull that up really quick. Let's go to space.com. Oh, here we go. They have like a GIF image of it. You'll see at the top, there's like this swirling that happens. It's not that something like this hasn't happened before. It's part of a known phenomena, but if I remember right, it was never this big. Like they've never seen it this big before on the sun. And you could say it's like the sun had a crown on it. Some people made that comment. You can look into that more, but you had this interesting event take place on the sun. All right, let's move on. I'm going to skip those ones. On March 1st, there was this very, very interesting conjunction that took place. There were 2 planets that were in conjunction at the same time, meaning that from our point of view from Earth, it looks like they're in a line, or they're like really close to each other in the sky. So one set was Venus and Jupiter, and the other set was Mercury and Saturn, which you couldn't see with the naked eye. You would have to have a telescope for that one. Now, I looked into it, and it is rare to have 4 different planets involved in a double conjunction. So, out of all the double conjunctions, most of the time you have one planet, let's say Jupiter, that might be in conjunction with Venus and also in conjunction with Mercury, like the other way. So you look one way, like a V, like if you're at the point of the V, you look one way and you see Jupiter, Venus that way. And then you look the other way and you see Jupiter, Saturn or whatever. Okay. So usually with double conjunctions, that's how it is, but it's even more rare to have a double conjunction that involves 4 planets. Okay. So this happened, and hopefully you remember it. I don't know if you remember it or not, but, it was pretty stunning in the sky. Just seeing, Jupiter in Venus. Some people, I guess that, okay, I'm not gonna make fun of anybody, but some people like thought that it was a spaceship. That's how strange it looked in the sky. It was pretty stunning. I have video of it. I shared it on my channel at the time that this was taking place. And they were talking about it being like a like all the different articles were talking about it being a celestial kiss, like the two planets are kissing. Other people noted, like some of you in the comments, where it's like, well, if Jupiter is like Christ, the groom, Venus is usually associated with women, or is viewed as like a woman, a female. So it's like you have the bride and the groom, which who knows? Maybe that is what that's supposed to mean. But whatever the case, it took place, and it was very interesting looking. If you remember, let me know in the comments below if you remember that conjunction. It was just earlier this year. It hasn't even been a full year yet. Okay, then in April, and at this time, I don't have an exact date for this, but sometime in April, the star Betelgeuse. Okay, so in the Orion constellation, let's go to Wikipedia. Okay, so hopefully you're familiar with this, right? Probably most people are familiar with Orion's belt. There are 3 very bright stars, and they really stand out, and they're part of this larger constellation called Orion. And Betelgeuse is this star right here, Orion's right shoulder, if he's facing us, Orion's right shoulder. I did an entire video about this star, but just to summarize, before the time of Christ, in poetry and literature, whenever they were describing this star, they would call it yellow. They would describe it as yellow. But after the time of Christ, there was a shift, and they started describing it as red. And that's how it remains today. It has kind of a reddish tint to it. So an interesting thing to happen, and the obvious symbolism is like, okay, red, the atonement has taken place. When Christ comes, he's going to be dressed in red. So it'd be fitting that this very prominent star would turn red. Well, okay, we'll put a bookmark right here and come back to this. Let me go back. Oops, probably too far. Where was it? I'll do it like this. Control F, dimming. Okay. So it just so happened that the month that COVID broke out in November, and I'm talking about in China, the month that it broke out, that star dimmed. They think that there was basically like a dust cloud that was being ejected from the star, or like, I can't remember what they said, but basically just like dust that was getting in between us and Betelgeuse. And that is how it's pronounced. Well, whatever the case, in November 2019, it dimmed as the pandemic was beginning. Oh, sorry. I have right here that it began in December, and that's according to this article. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's okay. I can misspeak. So whatever, at about the same time that you have the first cases of COVID, you have this star that dims. And it was dimmed until sometime in March, and I don't have an exact date for that. But March is the year that Angel Moroni dropped his trumpet, so he went quiet. And 2 days later, the missionaries were called home, and all temples worldwide were closed. So from the beginning of the pandemic until that month, this star that seems to maybe be associated with Christ in the atonement, it dimmed. Very strange. And then it went back to normal brightness. But then this year, interestingly, if I can find it again, this same star all of a sudden starts to shine brighter, 150% its usual brightness, which moved it from the 10th brightest star in the sky to the 7th brightest star. And I guess it has like a bright to dim cycle. And that cycle now is twice as fast as usual. So I think I'm going to look at it this way. If this star is associated with anything, I think it would be associated with Christ and the church. Or maybe just the atonement in general. So it's yellow before Christ, and then it turns red after Christ. And then during the pandemic, a pandemic which stopped the work of salvation, or it hindered it for a while, it goes dark and it dims. And now in 2023, now that we're pretty well past the pandemic, in 2022, there was the big call out for missionaries, and now things are basically back to normal. Now it's shining brighter than, as far as we know, it ever has. Now it's shining brighter than it ever has. And we know that at the beginning of the millennium, that's going to be the church's greatest time and need for missionaries. And again, this is after, so this happens in April, and that's 1 year after the April General Conference of 2022, where there was the big call out for missionaries. So it's like a 1 year anniversary, and this star starts to shine more brightly in the sky. It was just a few months ago. On April 15th, there was a rare daytime meteor that exploded over Israel, and not just over Israel, but over northern Israel, which is where Megiddo is, the valley, the area of Armageddon. Okay, so again, probably not a good sign, especially as we're talking about Yom Kippur, this being the 50th anniversary of Yom Kippur. And during this time, we have these unprecedented protests going on, the judicial overhaul protests, which all year they've been talking about it as the potential beginning of a civil war in Israel. I just recently did a video where former Prime Minister Ehud Barak said that people will probably get hurt or even have to lose their lives. You should watch that video. I'm serious. I think for some people, they get kind of bored maybe with talking about Israel and the politics there, because it's just like, it's boring, but I think it's important. I think it's actually very, very important. Because when I first saw this, like, judicial overhaul protest, I'm just like, ugh, yawn. What's that all about? But then as things seemed to get more and more serious, I started to take note of how unusual it was, and how Israel seems to be at a very pivotal moment in its history. And they've said that this is the most dangerous, or the closest to danger that Israel has ever been since the Yom Kippur War. Something like that, something to that effect. In fact, let me see if I can find that really quick. Most dangerous situation since Yom Kippur War. Yeah, okay, so for example, there's this one, National Post. This is Israel's most dangerous moment since the Yom Kippur War. And these guys aren't the only one. They're not the only ones that have said that. I'm not going to spend the effort and time to try and hunt down other articles, but I know that Times of Israel. Let's see, Times of Israel. Isn't that the name of that? Yeah, the Times of Israel. I know that I saw them do an article that pointed this out. So you have this event where people are worried about civil war. You have the biggest and longest sustained protests that the nation of Israel has ever seen. It comes in a year that is the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, the closest they've ever come to annihilation. And the first bill that passed related to this judicial overhaul happened on Tisha B'Av, which is the day that they commemorate the destruction of the first and second temples and other horrible events in Jewish history. A lot of weird things are going on right now. And it's important that we take note, even if it's boring. Because I'll tell you what, it's not going to be boring when everything comes to its conclusion. All right, on the 3rd of May. On the 3rd of May, we saw the most powerful solar flare ever recorded. Not from our sun, but from this star in the Orion system, of all places. Okay, the stellar system known as V1355 Orionis. Scientists have observed one of the most powerful solar flares ever observed. Well, not one, it was the largest one. This probably was the wrong article to pull up, but I believe me, I verified it. I showed it in the video where I covered this. There were other people that said that it was the largest. Now I'm going to have to see if I can find one really quick. Yeah, here we go. Interesting engineering. We've just observed the most powerful solar flare ever recorded. Is it the same article? It is the same article. Now I look like a clown. We've just observed the most powerful solar flare ever recorded. So last year, we saw the largest explosion ever recorded, that GRB that we saw 1 week after President Nelson said that we would see the greatest manifestations of the Savior's power the world has ever seen, which will undoubtedly include things like the resurrection, the city of Enoch coming with him, us being caught up, any number of things. There's probably a lot of things that you could categorize as the most powerful manifestations of the Savior's power. But anyway, it just so happens that this year we've seen the largest solar flare as well. Okay. Let's move on. That might be the last one. Oh, no. Yeah, here we go. July 20th. Comet 12P Pons Brooks abruptly brightens 100-fold. Now, this is the comet that's going to be coming next year. I have this comet spreadsheet. So its closest approach to Earth is going to be the 24th of June. But the interesting thing about this is that it's going to be visible. You may need binoculars, is what I've seen from different news articles. But it's going to be visible during the 2024 eclipse in April. And by the way, that's the day after General Conference. The day after General Conference, we're going to have that second eclipse, or maybe third if you include this October's eclipse. So there was the 2017 eclipse that went over Independence, Missouri, and Adirondack. You have the October eclipse that's coming up. And in case this is new to you, why don't I just show you? I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so the 2017 eclipse was significant and specific to the church because it went over Adirondack, far west, Independence, Missouri. Obviously, those are significant locations. The one in 2024 is going to go over Palmyra, New York, the site of the first vision. It's going to go over Kirtland, Ohio, right? And the two of them together are going to form a big X over the United States. Some people look at that as the letter Tav in the Hebrew alphabet, the last letter. And that would be according to Paleo Hebrew, not modern Hebrew. But if you include the one that's going to happen in October, then it's the letter Aleph, or the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. Again, in Paleo Hebrew, not modern block script Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew. Okay, so let me pull up, let me do the Utah eclipse. So this eclipse is going to go over Utah. So the other two eclipses, they go over significant church sites. And then the one that's happening in October is going to go over Utah. But it's not just going to go over Utah, as it turns out. If I turn on the temples right here, it goes through the one path that it could take in Utah to miss all the temples except for one. Well, actually two, but in potentially three, but really one. So the path of totality is this area right here. So don't ignore this corner, this like triangle right here. The path of totality, the southern edge of it is right here, and the northern edge is right here. This is roughly where it's going to go. It's accurate enough for me to say it's not going to go over Cedar City, the path of totality. But as far as whether it goes over where the new Ephraim, Utah temple is going to be, I'm not sure. But either way, the interesting thing about these two temples is that the Ephraim temple has not been dedicated yet. So it's not there. There's not an operating temple in Ephraim. And the Manti temple, which is in the path of totality, is currently decommissioned because it's being renovated. So out of all the temples in Utah, out of all of these temples, all over, the path of totality is going to miss all of them. It's going to go down the one place it would have to go to miss all of them, except for the Monticello, Utah temple, which is operational. So that's weird. I find that very weird. So during the 2024 eclipse, the one that's going to go over Palmyra and Kirtland, this comet, Pons Brooks, the one that just recently lit up, that brightened, it's going to be visible with binoculars if you're in the path of totality during that eclipse. Very strange. Very strange indeed. And then it'll be the closest to Earth in June. All right, let's move on. Oh, yep. 9 days before President Nelson turned 99 on 9/9, meaning September 9th, there was a blue supermoon. So not only was it a blue moon, it was also a supermoon. I did a whole video about this. You had the same thing happen, or you had two blue moons his first year as president of the church. I'm not going to go over that again. Just do a search for blue moon on my channel and it should pull up. But you had that happen. The last time that there was a super blue moon or a blue super moon was the last day of the month that President Nelson became president of the church. So he became president of the church, and I think it was 17 days later, there was a blue supermoon. And then the next time that we're going to see it is a blue supermoon is January 31st of 2037. Okay. And then that brings us to today. The three asteroids, or not today, sorry, yesterday, Yom Kippur. The three asteroids that passed by Earth on Yom Kippur of all days. And then pretty soon, in just a couple of weeks, we're going to have that eclipse that goes through Utah. It's going to go through Utah and other places as well, but I'm mostly focused on Utah. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Feel free to put, what you think in the comments below. Do you think it's strange? Do you think it's strange that we've had 3 sets of 3 asteroids fly past Earth on significant days. Yeah, I think that's very odd. I don't think that happens every day. Yom Kippur, of all days, the 50th anniversary of the war where Israel was the closest to being destroyed. Very strange. Well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.